So hello everyone. Today we have another PMP success story, and I have Krishnadri with me. And I have been telling her to give the exam for a while, and I'm very happy that she has done it. Now, before we ask her about her PMP exam preparation related stuff, let's know a little bit about her. So, Krishnadri, give us a little brief introduction about yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Krishnadri. I have a very varied background. So I have 15 plus years of overall experience, close to 18 in various domains. So I started off, my education is that of a psychologist. I'm an MA psychology person. All right. So my career started with work related to my studies. So I've worked as a psychologist in special setups, in regular schools. Then I had my own practice. And then because I'd done a lot of work in schools, I had also done a lot of work in OD, that is organizational development aspects of the school setup, which was very rare so many years down the line. So I was involved in devising the entire PMS system for the school setup and stuff. So when I got married, I had to really start looking at options because I was relocating from Mumbai to Pune. And then I started looking at similar roles for myself. And I was not getting very excited about the kind of opportunities which Pune had to offer for a psychologist of my experience back in Mumbai. So then I started approaching recruitment companies, and they told me that, why don't you join us? So it was my entire career journey went for an overhaul in terms of me looking at myself now as a recruiter. So then I joined one of the recruitment firms, and surprisingly, I did pretty well there because of my background. I could really understand what motivates people and interview them accordingly and place them. So from the recruitment background, then I joined one of the companies for which I used to hire in their recruitment team. So from a consultancy, I crossed the tables to join an organization. From that organization, I went into HR. From HR, I now work in IT. So now I started off as a business analyst, and then I got progressed. Now I manage a lot of projects, IT related, in the BI space. So BI space and also other spaces. So I handle the UI UX line, I handle the BI line, and a couple of other lines in my organization currently. So that's my background.
Okay, looks
And my
like
to really do project management basically, because that's not something that I traditionally learned in my course of education.
good. So this is, I think, pretty interesting. And I think in the new way of looking at project management, it's all about people. It's all about helping in developing them and working with those individuals. I think profile like you is kind of more suitable for current PMP exam than someone who is coming from pure project management space. Yeah.
Sure.
So what you learned while you were like, what I'm getting from your experience and background is, yeah, you had a people orientation already. And then you enrolled to the project management program, and we taught you all the project management, risk management, procurement management, all those things. So what you picked up from the whole project management content before we even talk about PMP, what was kind of a takeaway you made from this space?
Project management as a subject or as a discipline, it really opened my eyes towards what all you need to really take care when you're taking care of a project. So it's people comes automatically. Anybody who becomes a manager talks of people. People management practices are already in place in an organization, and there are certain guidelines already provided in the structure to take care of people. The training, all these aspects are already laid out, but many things are unsaid when it comes to project management as a practice. And those things, the course really oriented me towards taking a look at those things, because me as a new project manager in my organization, I mean, I've been doing this for a couple of years now, but uh, when I started off, there was very little which I would understand on my own, which is not explicit. So at least in studying the course, there were lots of things which came to my mind, which I now take care of automatically, though it is not really spelled out in my organization. It now I take care of those things while I am running those projects.
Okay.
So, So
Yeah.
that was really helpful in terms of giving me the holistic picture that how projects need to run.
Good. And what make you like think about doing PMP certification? Like, what was the motivation?
The motivation was see my background really tells you that I'm somebody who learns to reinvent. Okay, it's I've not been in one static role for all my life. It's always been reinventing, learning, and doing the best in the field that I am currently doing. So when I am running projects, it became important for me to know what am I into,
Mhm.
and to really add value, because doing what comes to you automatically, everybody does that. But if you want to really contribute, if you really want to add value, if you really want to be counted as a good project manager or a program manager later, then it's very important to have those skills
Mhm.
which
Mhm.
the field demands or which the domain demands. So
Mhm.
that is the
Mhm.
reason why I thought that this course will probably give me that edge.
Okay, so if I'm reading it right, so you had a sense of developing a mastery in a particular subject, and since you have been doing project management, you wanted to understand it formally so that you know, okay, what this domain all covers, and you want to master that particular area, and the PMP certification you used as a mean for doing that.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And as the complexity increases in my organization, it's more so important for me to be on top of it and to
Mhm.
not, always there is no time to learn on the go. You need to
Mhm.
already know. So
Mhm.
learning on the job happens if your projects are a little simple, you have that kind of learning curve available, you have that kind of time available. But when there are many projects and when the complexity is more and when the challenges are new, so it is important to have those skills to deal with them right then and there, because there is no
Yeah.
time to make mistakes and keep going back and forth.
And that is something that PMP content nowadays talks about. That training is kind of a major component in each lesson, and the whole idea of training is that you keep reassessing the skills of individuals all the time and keep them ready, rather than looking for a crisis or a situation and then trying to find out like, how do I train these set of people because we have a situation. So it's expected to be an ongoing thing, and that seems to be your principle for yourself while you were preparing for your project management. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about your PMP preparation journey. What all you did, how you made yourself
Yes.
ready for
So
PMP exam.
that, Saket, has been a very interesting journey and a non-standard one at that. So um, I enrolled in the course way back in February, if I'm not
Mm-hmm,
mistaken.
mm-hmm,
So it was the first batch, so to speak, which was studying in the new way. So enrolled for that course. I had full intentions of giving my exam in March, April, as soon as the course finishes. And but at that time, Corona was really high in Pune, especially. So my plans shelved, because initially I was planning to go to the center and give the exam, and I was not really relying on the internet at home. So
mm-hmm,
I was thinking that I'll go to the center, but that went out of the picture. And around the same time, I got promoted. So there
mm-hmm,
were more responsibilities at work, and there were lots of dynamics happening around me with my teams working remotely and the challenges which it brings. So then the entire idea of giving the exam kept getting shelved for later. And then so many months passed. So
mm-hmm,
then when things settled a little bit, then I thought now it's high time that I should give my exam. But then I had lost a lot of the edge that I had at that time, because all the study was very recent, and the orientation was there. So then I requested Eisenbridge and Saket to allow me to join another online class. So that's when it all took shape. So then when I
mm-hmm,
joined the online class again, the routine came. So in terms of, I could find that kind of routine again. And then I did the online classes. And at the same time, I started studying on my own. So
mm-hmm.
what I really did is I did all the videos that you have. I did not cover agile videos and scrum videos so much, because I already work in that area. So that knowledge was already there. And I would give the subject tests that you have in campus. And where I would find a bit problematic, I would go deeper into that subject in the exam prep guide. So even the whole exam prep guide, I did not read fully. I explored topics deeply in which I was not scoring very well on campus. So that is how I studied very selectively and in a focused manner. And I gave the full length mocks. So those full length mocks really oriented me towards sitting for that amount of time at a stretch, concentrating for that 4 hours, because it really needs a certain amount of preparation beforehand. So that really helped. The mock test really helped because that revealed the areas in which I have to really study a little bit more. And that's how it was. So once I started scoring, the third mock test was good. So I was like, now I think I'm ready. And so that's what I did. Yes. So before I did all of that, I did one more thing. I scheduled my exam. Even before I started prepping so much, I gave myself a deadline and I scheduled my exam, because without that schedule, I realized that it just doesn't happen. So I had to give myself an external deadline. Like all projects have to end, this had to end. And there was a deadline and I worked towards that deadline. So that's how it.
Perfect. So I pick up the last thread first and then I go to the whole journey. So you created a sense of urgency, which we talk in a project management. It's a topic that, how do you create a sense of urgency in the team? And for you yourself, you created sense of urgency by putting a deadline for the exam. Yeah, something like that. Good. So what I'm picking up is that I think the overall thing took around 6-7 months because of various reasons. And I do see when you joined in the first session, you were pretty active, and I was like quite confident that you will do the exam soon. And then things happened in between. And I think it was a good idea to do it again, because I think the second time you are already having a background, you might have done some homework, which might be missing when you are attending the first time, the sequence. I believe I think generally, I believe if the people like have not given the exam in the 3 months time after the first class, they may better take the second class again and then ensure that they can catch up whatever they were missing in the previous class and then give the exam. Not necessarily everyone should take the second class, but if there is a gap, then better you do it. So that's the second thing I am picking from your conversation. The third thing which I'm picking up is that it's not necessary to go from a content view. One can go from a validation view also, because sometimes when you are preparing, you may never know, are you ready or not, and how much you need to study more, what all you need to remember more. You may study few lessons and you may get confused. Oh, I am forgetting the previous lesson, and get an anxiety related to it. So rather than doing that, one can do a validation orientation, pick up the mock test, pick up the test, give the exam, a practice test, and find, okay, these are the area which are getting weak, and then selectively find out those details and improve. That can speed up the process rather than you do just a preparation and then going here and there. Yeah, good, great. Yeah. So what kind of an advice? I want to talk about specifics now. Let's talk about agile. Let's talk about generic project management and people domain. I think people domain seems to be the key domain for you. Easiness, from easiness point of view. So what kind of an advice you want to give individuals when it comes to, let's start from people domain, because I think you may know more about the people domain than the PMI questions also. So you could probably see, okay, what they are trying to ask and what they are trying to trap individuals. So your insight based on the practice test and the preparation and your background, what should people do for people domain related area?
For people domain related areas, I think it's very important to basically the questions are very straightforward, at least for me. The answers came logically to me. But so then I will probably not be able to give a lot of advice on how to prepare for the people domain, because it comes naturally to me. So I didn't have to prepare so much there. But having said that, I think what one needs to keep in mind is to look at ways which are not very directive. So if there are options available One which is talking of a direct approach, another approach is talking of reaching somebody else to get the work done, and the third approach talks of some answer which is a little collaborative approach, then a collaborative approach would probably be the right answer, or working with the people would probably be the right answer, and finding solutions together would probably be the right answer, than the PM deciding or the PM directing or getting somebody else escalating and getting the work done. So it's more to do of working with people and for the people, which is where the answers became a little more correct for me.
Perfect. So it looks like it's just a matter of a mindset. And once you end up really working with various teams, those kind of a mindset may be a kind of a default mindset in you. So and individuals who are involved in the team related stuff, they find it naturally coming in their mind, and the natural answer is the right answer. That's something they start observing in the practice as well as in the real exam. And the advice, which based on your analysis, which is coming in, don't try to force individuals to do in a certain way. So don't try to be a directive leader. That seems to be a negative option whenever you see that. And don't also try to escape or run away from the situation. Okay, this guy is not listening, I don't care, I don't talk to him, I find someone else, or I escalate to the manager. So don't withdraw, don't avoid, or don't run away or escape from the problem. Don't try to force it. Now find a middle ground where you are saying, okay, I listen to you, you might have some concerns, let's work together, I empathize with your problem, and based on that empathetic approach, we find together what best can be done. And if this thing remains in your mind, probably all the people domain questions will start falling at place.
Yes. Yes. And sometimes it is important to keep in mind that you might have to engage in a certain level of conflict to reach a solution. It's even when you are confronting, sometimes confrontation is important, but you need to see in which cases will confrontation work and in which cases it won't. So it's not always, so sometimes a PM may need to be a little directive, but you need to look at the options and see what works best.
Okay. So there could be a situation where you challenge, where you put your point very assertively that this is something which is not acceptable. Like the example we keep using in the class, when there is a repetitive violation of a ground rules, you need to put your foot down. It's not like, people can do it because of a one person, other people are suffering. It's not only about that person, it's about the rest of the team members also. And you need to do something about it. In those cases, you need to be assertive as well, rather than you say, okay, we will talk tomorrow and we'll figure out. So there is a limit for things. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good.
And even in life, there is a limit to it, right?
Good. And what about agile way of working? So like, I believe your current work environment has pretty agile heavy. So yeah, how the exam agile part looked like?
Now, the overall, the industry is moving towards hybrid. So it becomes very important to start looking at hybrid as the next thing. It's not agile as the next thing, it's hybrid as the next thing. So many projects, even projects like currently, even we are working on agile, but so many projects, even here, even in my current organization, are hybrid. There are purely agile projects, there are hybrid projects, and there are projects which call themselves agile, but in the end they behave like they are predictive. So it's because organizations are going through a mindset shift. So depending on how the stakeholders' expectations are, depending on how the organization is adopting the change and in what stage they are in terms of their mindset shift, is what decides how the projects are running. So even from the exam point of view, it's very important to study, understand the hybrid approach very well. A lot of scenarios, questions are related to it. And it is important to understand it deeply and well, that what you will do. Because when it's purely predictive, the answers are clear. When it's purely agile, answers are clear. But when it is hybrid, it is a little confusing, and then it becomes a little confusing even to choose the right option, because anything might work. An agile answer might work, a predictive answer might work, but you need to see what works best.
Yeah. That's a very important point, and I do relate to what you are saying. So what I believe personally, the PMP has a strength towards hybrid because they were agile business or a certification or education programs already established, and the PMP was more on a traditional space, well established. Now, if the PMI try to become an agile expert organization, they may struggle to do that because there is already many agile experts. Where the PMI may find a good strength is hybrid because, okay, we are doing project management. We have been doing various ways of doing project management, and the various situations may require various composition or a percentage of agility. You may not need 100% agility. You may need 20% agility. Now, how do you work with that? And if we talk about a project manager, that's the role of a project manager, because in a pure agile world, we may not need a project manager also. So if we need a project manager, it means there is a hybrid thing. It is not agile anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well put, Saket. You nailed it, basically.
So better we all as a project manager, especially when you are giving for PMP exam, we better be ready for hybrid. The another way I personally see is the term project itself brings hybrid. When you talk about agile, you should be doing for your own company. There is no contract in between. We can do whatever we want. But as soon as the project comes, there are two-party comes, there are vendor and supplier, like customer relationship is there. There's a contract there. There is a billing there in between. The reporting is there. So it has its own hybrid already inside it as soon as you start working in a project mode. Yeah. Good. Yeah. And that's a good advice for all of the test takers that, please do stress a little bit more on hybrid way of working. And as Krishnadri is telling that many approaches can work there. So we need to understand which approach will work good. So hybrid could be related to selection of the life cycle. Hybrid could be an integration of agile and non-agile projects together, to report together, to estimate together, to deliver together, to resolve customer expectation together. And those all situations we need to visualize well. Yeah, that's the hybrid part of it. Okay. Any specific thing you observed or you prepared when you were looking at a traditional project management space like procurement, risk and all? Yeah.
I basically just concentrated on the knowledge area. So when it comes to predictive, it's the process part of the questions which will cover the predictive life cycle anyway. And it is important to study all the knowledge areas. Certain knowledge areas become important from the people aspect, but there is a lot of weightage on process as well. And all the other knowledge areas which do not get touched by people get touched by process. So it's important to study the knowledge areas well. It's putting emphasis on or leaving out a certain knowledge area completely would not be advisable. You might not go deep in all knowledge areas, but some level of good understanding is required on each.
And that seems to be aligning with what I have been advising people. So, right, like you understand all the knowledge area, you understand what all is done there, what kind of artifacts get generated there, may not necessarily focus on exact sequence of those artifact generation, may not focus on how one input becomes the output of other things, may not necessarily look into, but you should know what is a requirement management plan, what is a scope management plan, what is a work breakdown structure, what is a validate scope, what is a verified deliverables, what is a validated deliverables. So these things may come as a right or wrong option. And that kind of a knowledge might be needed in order to understand the questions also in some cases. That's something is my perception. Yeah.
Yes. Another thing which is important to know is the flow of the process. So when does the process begin? What happens when you come in the execution part of the process, and how does it end? It's not necessary to remember the artifacts, but it is very important to remember the flow. Because once the flow is understood, then you can quickly place the question correctly as to whether the question is talking of execution, or whether the question is talking of something related to closing, or whether the question is about something to do with initiating or planning or what. Understanding of the flow is very important, because that helps to understand one knowledge area's connection with other knowledge area as well. So how would a certain knowledge area in a certain stage affect another knowledge area in a different stage. So
Mm-hmm.
it's important to understand the flow and the correlationships between the various knowledge areas, which helps to. So basically, what I'm talking about, it's important to understand the big picture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not about understanding the nitty gritties. It's important to understand the big picture, the flow and the interrelationships, which gives the entire idea of how a project is run.
Perfect, perfect. And that's kind of, you can call it project integration at the end. And what I'm picking up from a flow is that how the things is getting started, say the requirement is coming from the customer, and how you convert that into a scope, how do you execute it, how do you schedule it, how do you cost it, and while doing it, what kind of a risk you see in it. So how do you
Yes.
plan your risk? Then you start executing, periodically you produce monitorings, and some risk becomes a reality. What do you do with it? Then the some stakeholder is not happy with it. What do you do with it? Some individual may want to leave the job in between. The resource management comes in. How do you handle it? And then some change request is coming. You are integrating it to whole aspects, change request of a stakeholder, or change request of because of some technical issues. How do you handle overall? So, and I personally believe this flow and integration can only be understood when you try to be like focusing on the complete knowledge area. If you always try to pick part of it and only focus on the exam, then you may struggle to make the whole big picture clear in your mind. Yeah. Good, good. I really liked your advice. Any specific thing which I'm not asking, but you may probably want to share with the future PMP exam test takers?
What I would want to share as an advice is about the exam itself. It's very important to keep an eye on the time. The exam questions are anyways a little, it's not easy. Even after my preparation, even after scoring above target, I will not say the exam is easy. There are various things which add to stress, and the most important thing which adds to stress is the time. Because when the time runs out of your hand very fast, and it is stressful to read that question in that limited amount of time, to understand the options available and to choose the right one. So it that itself causes stress.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so it's very important to time yourself well, and to always realize, where you are and how much you still need to cover. So
Perfect.
time yourself well and take your breaks, because those are really important, and for you to exercise them adequately. Those breaks are good, and they really help you relieve the kind of pressure cooker situation that you may have gone through in the 60 questions that you answered. So it helps, yes.
Okay, so what I'm picking, and I think this is a common advice we get from majority of test takers: manage your time. And I add, manage your time while doing preparation for your PMP exam, and while giving the real exam also. And if you manage the time well, it increase your concentration. If you are lacking in the time management, your concentration may start also going here and there, and that may reduce your performance. So time management is important, first to score, or like first to read and mark all the questions, as well as have a confidence of marking them right, because you are calm. And one of the advice people keep giving for managing time is practice full length test more and more, and practice them in a strict timeline. You may like try to do half an hour early than the real exam, so that you can manage and your focus and manage your time pretty much well. So that's something people end up advising as well. Yeah.
Yes. Another thing that I would want to share as an advice is keep very few questions for review, because even review takes time. So it's you're eating away the time from your total time if you have a lot of questions for review. So
Mhm.
if a certain question becomes confusing, leave it right there. Don't even mark an option, leave it incomplete, just move to the next one. Spend 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds on a question. If it doesn't make sense, leave it and move forward. You can complete it later. But what happens is, if you have spent a lot of time reading, then you've spent a lot of time answering, then you've marked it for review, then you end up spending double the time
I
to
know.
review it.
Yeah.
make your corrections. So it's better to just leave the question blank so that you've not wasted a lot of time, and then you can come back in your last, when you are actually doing the review, to complete the incomplete questions.
That's a nice strategy. So if you have already invested the time, then better take the judgment and move forward and don't think of reviewing it later. But if you really want to review it, then save your time. Don't spend that much time and studying it right now. Later on, when you have little more time in your hand, you may want to look at that question later. Yeah.
Yes. Because I made that mistake in the first 60 questions. I had a lot of questions for review, and then I realized that this is not a good thing to do. So after my first break, I learned from my past mistakes, and I did the next 60 questions in a much better manner. So it's lessons learned and retro happened for me right there.
So that's a good another observation or an important input, that take your break, because that break will give you a time to do a quick retro in your mind, and that may happen subconsciously. And that a break will, because in the absence of that, you may keep repeating the same mistake which you are doing in the first slot of 60 questions. So it's a good idea to take a break, as it is given as an option to you after 60 questions, and similarly later on, and that can help you in recalibrating your strategy.
And another thing that I learned is the questions that I had marked for review, and I did the review of those 60 questions, first 60 questions later, I did not change a single answer. So it was such a waste of time that, it's not like I changed the answer, but because of the stress and because I was not sure of myself, I marked it for review. And later on, I realized that I was always right. I mean, there was nothing to review here. So that's when it hit me that why did I waste so much time reviewing stuff which was already right? So
yes. Yeah. So and many times test taker also tells that take your first guess. Yeah, because even if you change the answer, you may change it for wrong. Yeah, that's also a risk. So there is a very, like, if you mark 10 questions for review, maybe 5 questions you change for right, but 5 may you end up changing for wrong, and maybe the ultimate thing will be more or less the same. So I have few test takers which recommends that don't even think of reviewing. Look at the question and take your first guess. Yeah. Okay, good. From my side, I am done. And big thank you taking time on Sunday. I know that the life is very busy nowadays, and you took time to share your PMB story. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it was good working with you in the classes as well, Krishnadri. And thank you
so much, Saki. And it was really good, a very good learning experience with Icenbridge, especially the second time round. The first time was really new, and all of us did not know where we were. But I'm very happy that you allowed me to attend the classes the second time round, because that really put things into perspective, and that really helped.
I know first time was a lot of anxiety also, because everybody was doing it first time. Even I was doing the class first time.
Yes. So
okay.
Yeah. That was really nice.
Thank you. Yeah. See you sometime later then. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Saki.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.